Describe for Sarah and Kay how that episode 100 filming went.
How it went?
Well, what the setup was.
Well, we were in your basement.
I remember that.
we were in your basement.
Yeah.
But I think we had wasn't your pool table right there, and we had some stuff on the pool table. We had to
It's a
sort of
mess. And I
climb
had
over
like old cell phones, old iPods, old.
You moved your studio upstairs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's where we did 200, and now we're doing 300
now we're
here
in Kay Sargent's office. All right, I'm gonna kick things off. Hey folks, welcome to the show. It's me, your host, Mike P., coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., the offices of HOK, and it's special, everybody. This is episode number 300 of the Workplace Innovator podcast. How about that?
I thought you were going to say it was special because it's opening day.
Opening day, Washington Nationals. Absolutely, that is a special time.
Yeah.
April 2024. Hope springs eternal for my Nats, and
We can only hope.
the world is bright and blooming here in our nation's capital, and I am thrilled to have this opportunity to celebrate the 300th episode of my little podcast that could. And it's just an honor to be here, and it's a thrill to welcome some past guests, some wonderful voices from our facility management and corporate real estate world, incredible workplace leaders. Let me start off right away by welcoming our host here today. You know her, you love her.
And I didn't think you'd ever make it to 300, but here we are. That's amazing.
And your name is what? The incomparable Kay Sargent, everybody.
Thank you for having me, Mike. Or I guess you're in our house, so I guess I'm having you. But thank you for inviting me to present on the 300th episode. It's exciting.
I wouldn't have it any other way, Kay. You are a frequent
could have it
flyer
other
on this
ways,
program.
But okay. All right.
Next up, a longtime friend of mine from the Capital chapter of IFMA. She has been a leader in our industry, a practitioner with many roles, an evolving facility management journey into HR, into workplace well-being and culture, and I wanted to ask her to bring her perspective. She's been on the show before, one of our live stream participants back during the era of which we don't speak anymore, the COVID era, but I wanted to bring her back for episode 300. Sarah Sims, welcome.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks so much. I'm happy to be here celebrating 300 episodes of learning and celebrating all of the innovation of FM world.
Awesome. And you have been a long-time listener as well, supporter.
I have been.
I can't thank you enough.
I keep up.
And last but not least, down there on the end, he is a longtime friend from the very beginning of my podcasting journey, from the very beginning of my FM experience, when I stumbled into the world of IFMA a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Not that far away. Right here in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C.
And you didn't tell him to run?
No.
He is more than just a guy who cleans carpets, everybody. He is the president of the DJ Mike P fan club.
Yep.
Maybe the only member of that club, Geoff Snavely.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
I am a DJ Mike P fanboy, a Workplace Innovator groupie. Right. But you know, I think I helped create this monster, right?
You did. You were
the monster of DJ Mike P. And
you know who to blame, everybody.
We know.
And I mean that in the most loving way.
Yeah.
I'm also an NC State Wolfpack alum, so go Wolfpack.
Go Wolfpack.
Final four, the team that has caught the nation's heart. Right.
It's that time of year. March Madness, Nats opening day, home opener.
Spring.
And April in D.C.
But Mike, congratulations, seriously.
Thank you.
300 episodes is an amazing milestone. So good for you. And this is really, really, really great.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's really, again, it's an honor. It's a blessing. It's humbling to think back over all the many episodes we've done, many together with our community. And we're going to do it again here with a celebration. We're going to look back at some past guests and some quotes they've shared with me. We're going to celebrate baseball. Of course, that's my favorite thing to talk about. Maybe a little Star Wars, maybe some music trivia. So stay tuned, everybody.
Maybe.
And that's the other
There
thing.
it is.
I love the maybe.
not just an audio podcast. If you're listening to the show on your normal channel on the Apple platform or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast, that's great. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. We're going to have a bonus size episode. It's going to be more than the normal 20 minutes. But if you'd like to see us live in full color, in Technicolor, as we used to say, Kay, back in the day,
Yeah.
we're on video.
All right.
Shout out to our director, Garrett, who has helped me with my series of videos I've been doing for YouTube on my way to work with some of our other friends from here in D.C.
Yeah.
You had a chance to see those videos?
I have, actually, and I loved it. And I want you to go to other cities. I can't wait to see you in New York City trying to do that.
Oh, that's a
I
great
got some
idea.
people for you. I've got y'all hooked up.
I can't wait.
You name a city, I'll hook you up. We're ready
Asking
to go.
you shall receive,
Yeah,
Kay.
let's do it.
Garrett and I will be filming just a matter of weeks in the ATL, Atlanta, Georgia,
Oh.
the home of North American headquarters, Eptura. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank Eptura for this incredible setup and opportunity, as well as HOK with the beautiful greenery. You know, when I had this on the calendar, and it's been there, you know, we release every week, so we knew when this was coming. Geoff and I met months ago and said we're going to do an episode 300. He's done episode 100 with me. He co-hosted episode 200, as he mentioned.
What a glutton for punishment.
And now he's back.
Yes.
But Geoff, I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something special. So months ago, Geoff and I were chatting about episode 300, and the first thing that came to mind for me was I'd love to look good for the film. I'd love to drop some weight. And a movie that inspired me was 300, that Roman gladiator movie. So my goal was to be here today, rip my shirt off, and have a six-pack.
Yeah.
Maybe Garrett can digitally enhance
Is that going to happen?
No. Of course, unfortunately, I set the goal to, a more realistic goal, Kay, was to just lose 10 pounds before filming happened today. And I'm excited to report, I don't want to brag, but I only have 15 pounds to go.
Nice work.
That's a Jim Gaffigan joke for you, everybody. Well, listen, we're going to have some fun today. We already have. We're going to share some of your insights as to what is happening in the world of FM, real estate, workplace here in 2024. Yeah. We're going to go over some of the themes I've been hearing. I've looked back and I've said, okay, there's some patterns happening here. We're talking about a lot of the same things over and over again, and I want to get your insight and take on that. And then I mentioned we're going to have some past quotes. We'll do a little test to see if you can name who said what. And then I'm going to also have a little music trivia. So get your buzzers ready. Okay. We're going to have a little game, and there are valuable prizes to be won here on the Workplace Innovator podcast.
I thought that was all the April Fool's joke. No? Really? Seriously?
We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. Don't spoil it. No spoilers, Kay.
Okay.
But first, you know I love music. Every episode of the podcast, I ask my guests to bring an artist or type of music or a song to the table, and you all did not disappoint. We talked about baseball, walk-up songs when you're grabbing your bat and heading to the plate. What music is playing in Nats Park as you step up to the plate? Kay Sargent, kick us off.
So I actually have had to think about this because I spoke recently at a conference and they asked me what my walk-up song was. And I'm like, my what? Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And I had to really think about it, but gotta be Fine Young Cannibals. She drives me crazy.
I love it. Doom, doom. Come on, everybody.
Absolutely.
Kay Sargent. She
and it's got this
great
crazy. Long musical intro.
Yeah.
That, like you can stagger across the stage as much as you want. So yeah, that would be it. A little bit upbeat beat and
this one
describes how a lot of people feel about me.
Like
she
no
drives me
one
crazy.
else. Ooh, ooh.
Yeah.
Kay Sargent drives me crazy, and I can't help myself. You know what other song from Fine Young Cannibals is on that same album, though? Good Thing. Ding.
Oh, yes.
That's a good one. You're a good thing for us.
Okay,
so
well,
thank you, Kay.
Thank you.
All right, let me go down to the end here, mix it up. Speaking of crazy, Geoff Snavely, what did you want to bring to the table?
Well, so I love questions, right? So I'm gonna put a philosophical question out there as I let everyone know my song.
Absolutely.
Does a walk-on song, is it your favorite song, or should it reflect your personality? Like whatever
you feel is leading you.
So think about that, and I'm going to go with Crazy Train, Ozzy Osbourne. Crazy times.
All
we live in a
aboard.
Crazy world. I think we're all a little crazy, myself, included, and then some. But I just think that would be such a cool way to come out.
Ozzy.
Yeah. But the problem with the question I asked earlier is I'm not cool enough for my personality to match my favorite song. So it's kind of I can't pull off Crazy Train or
I think you could try. I think you could.
Or Guns. Like I would love to come out to Sweet Child of Mine or something like that. That guitar. I am not cool enough to do that.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. DJ
right.
Mike P approves. Come on. That's a great song. That's a Virginia Tech Hokies song they played at the Lane Stadium in Blacksburg.
Oh,
often.
famous Inner Sandman.
Bum bum.
Oh,
Bum
yeah.
bum 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 bum. Hi. That's Ozzy, but
That's
Enter Sandman.
Ozzy.
Yeah, you can't go out saying.
Classic. Absolutely.
All aboard.
I would. We could spend the whole hour
We could.
talking about music, but we've got one more song we have to share.
Yeah.
And Sarah Sims, you and I chatted, and you got a great one, inspiring. Tell me about it.
Yes, Jay-Z's with Alicia Keys.
Yes.
Empire State of Mind. I love it because it's got the beat of hip hop, but the melody of the piano keys and the messages. You can make big things happen. Take the risks. So,
Ding, 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 ding. I'm from New York. Come on, everybody. Concrete jungle where dreams are made of.
There's nothing you
Can't do in New York.
I'm sparing our audience and not singing, and they'll
Me
thank
too.
me later. I promise you.
Big lights will inspire you. Okay. Absolutely. My singing may not. Bad podcast
You have
karaoke,
great
though,
singing. Me,
is
not
par
so
for the
much.
course here, everybody, on the Workplace Innovator podcast. Fantastic. Good stuff. Speaking of inspiration, I always bring some quotes to the table. We like to inspire the audience. And I mentioned baseball. One of the sources of great witty quotes have been mentioned many times on the show recently. Yogi Berra. You know Yogi. One of the things he has said, and I have shared this at many a speech recently at industry conferences, the future ain't what it used to be. Do you agree? Disagree? Thoughts about Yogi's insight?
Well, it's clever, but I'm not really sure it's spot on. But yeah, it's clever.
Well, the other one that he shares often is when you come to a fork in the road, take it. And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to take this opportunity to share where we are today. April 2024, episode 300. What is on your mind as you look back over these last 4, 5, 6 years? We've had a lot of change, a lot of challenge in our industry, a lot of folks still struggling. We all are dealing with it, trying to build a community together. And with that in mind, I'm going to start with Geoff down in the far end because you were there at the beginning and you've been there every step of the way. And Sarah's been on my live stream. Kay's been on the live stream. Remember those times when we were doing FM live streams, workplace live streams, and it was a time of togetherness, right? What was going on back then?
Well, what do you mean what was going on back then?
What do you take away? What are some of the thoughts? What are some of your thoughts that come to mind when you think over the last recent years? And where are we today? Wherever you want to take it.
Well, so, one of the things I'm doing a lot of these days is I'm asking a lot of clarifying questions, right? So like the question of like, where are we today or how did we get here or trying to get some definition around what that means, so in context is important as well, so there's no doubt that, things have changed and things have changed a lot, but in a lot of ways, things haven't changed at all, because ultimately I think so much of what we're dealing with comes down to us, comes down to people, comes down to, interpersonal relationships and
human beings are strange creatures. And I talk about that here a lot.
It comes down to human behavior and anthropology and relationship building and trust building and all those things.
We've talked about it. And Sarah, you are now in this world. Tell everybody a little bit more of the workplace well-being and culture question, because it ties directly to what Geoff's describing, right?
Yeah, a lot of our workplaces have been influenced by business objectives of the past, right? So where does the business want to go, and how fast does the business want to get there, and on what terms does the leadership want to make that happen? And COVID really forced us to look more into the people's well-being, to prioritize their well-being, to prioritize their health. And I think much of the decisions that we're making today are still very centered on the employee's engagement with their work, with their colleagues, even with their personal obligations. We're factoring that into the world of work. So it's actually very exciting. It is so much kind of anthropologically focused, more than it ever has been. And I think leaders and organizations should just be prepared to continue to figure out how the workplace serves the person, the people, and the work that those people do.
Yeah, human-centric approach, right, Kay? What are you focused on?
Yeah, I'm gonna have a very different answer than I think what Geoff shared. I kind of feel like in 2019 we were driving down the road, kind of on autopilot. Just it's just reactive. Like we were just going through our lives and doing what was expected, and then all of a sudden something swerved in front of us and made us slam on the brakes and be like, "Whoa, wait, whoa!" Like what just happened? And then you're in that moment where you're instantly snapped out of something, and a new reality is in front of you, and you have to think about how what just happened and where do I go from here. And I think we were just happily on autopilot, and COVID was a slap across the face to make us realize, pay attention, things are changing, and they're not going to be the same going forward. I think there's been lots of conversation about, is it work? Is it the workforce? Is it the workplace? I think we are experiencing a societal shift, and I don't think we have really acknowledged that openly and embraced that.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing I want to get into a little bit later is some of the big, hairy questions that you bring up. You challenge us, Kay. But, Geoff, you're in agreement, right? You see that there's a lot going on and changing, but there's that element of the human side that doesn't change. I think it's a paradox of the workplace, is what I always say, right? Two things can be true, even though they seem like they're contradictory.
No, absolutely. And this thing with relationships, right? Because there's these relationships that happen between people, right? Whether they be, with a coworker, with someone you work for, or someone that works for you. But there's also these institutional relationships and I think that's what we're hearing a lot of these days is, people making claims or having feelings about their level of trust, say, with their company, with their employer. And then you go, well, that's interesting. What does a relationship look like from an institutional standpoint? But really, it becomes sort of a roll-up of all the individual relationships that happen within that institution, within that company. But I do think that is so important to anything and everything that we're dealing with today is how we interact and build relationships and take care of each other or not.
Right. And that's what I was alluding to.
But Geoff, I think one of the reasons that becomes more and more important is that there's another thing we have relationships with. And I'd argue that there are a whole lot of people that have stronger relationships with their technology now than they do with actual people.
Yeah.
And that actually is driving a need for us to reconnect. And I think it's driving a lot of the things that we're seeing, whether it's conspiracy theories, whether it's fake news, whether it's poor relationships, whether it's depression, any and all of those things. There's a new element that, 50 years ago, 20 years ago, you didn't have that. You didn't have a relationship with your technology, but people do today.
Yeah, that's one of those paradoxes I often mention is the fact that we have these tools, these tech tools that allow us to be more connected than ever before. Yet we are also more isolated and more alone and more lonely than ever before.
Yeah.
So it's one thing that we've shared on the show a lot, and we'll continue to dive into that nuance and that complexity. The other thing we talk about, Kay, and you've shared this in the past, that we are moving at a very fast pace. Things are changing more rapidly than ever before, but at the same time, paradoxically, they'll never be this slow. And I came across a quote, I'm sure you've heard it, but it was from Bill Gates a while ago, back during the Apple, Microsoft wars and the technology advancement and so forth.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard this. He says, we always overestimate the change that will occur in the next 2 years and underestimate the change that will occur in the next 10. And I always use the iPhone as an example. In the early years of the iPhone being introduced, I was like, oh, that's not a big deal. I'll keep my BlackBerry, everybody, my QWERTY keypad. And 2 or 3 years later, things hadn't really changed. People were still using BlackBerries, but 10 years later, iPhone and Android devices, the smartphone had taken over the world. BlackBerry is no more. And it was only when we looked back 10 years, and now we see all these other things that the iPhone and the technology is impacting. Talk more about that.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite quotes right now is one by Stephen Hawking, and I'm going to totally get it wrong, but it's something about we are in a race with our future is basically a race between how quickly technology will evolve and the intelligence of which we as humans choose to use it. And I think that is absolutely true. And when we look at the big conversation today about artificial intelligence and how that's going to impact us, we presented on this about 6 or 7 years ago at a conference, and we did a ton of research around this. And what we found is that people were really optimistic about the next few years. The people that were saying this is an existential crisis were looking 40, 50 years down the line. And I think that we tend to think about short-term games, not necessarily long-term games. And when you think long-term, I don't sleep that great at night thinking about some of that stuff because I think we are in a race with this. I think the cat is out of the bag. I don't think we fully have really understood what it is that we have unleashed. And now we can't really put it back in, and it's a race to see who can do it first because I think people tend to be very positive at our nature. We have a sunny disposition, but technology takes everything very literally, and there are nefarious people out there that can do bad things.
Yeah, Kay, it's scary stuff, or it can be, but we're going to talk about broader issues here, and we're going to definitely dive deeper into the AI question. But over the last recent months, I've jotted down some notes of some of the topics that have come up again and again. These are the themes I'm hearing, and I want to get your take on it, okay? First of all, I mentioned it, change management. Everything's about change these days, being adaptable, adjustable. The FM world has to be ready for that. We're going to have to upskill, requirements for upskilling, understanding human behavior. We've already addressed that a little bit, but we're going to talk more about it. Embracing technology or being prepared for this scary technology, as Kay, you were alluding to. And then also prioritizing well-being. So I want each of you to kind of think through those topics and agree, disagree. Sarah, what of those, if any, resonate with you?
Well, definitely well-being is a major one for me.
Sure.
We have the well-being as it supports users in the built environment. And when you think about well-being, we often in the FM world think about the physical, the ergonomics, but now we have to think about digital well-being. We have to be thinking about how long a user is in a conference room, having a meeting with someone in another part of the country for long periods of time. We have team building going on in hybrid. We also have, in addition to digital health, there is the focus, a multidimensional focus on well-being. So we also have to be thinking about their development, the social aspects of well-being in the workplace now.
Sure, yeah.
So how are they engaging when they're in the space? And much of that, being an architecture firm right now is about the design of the space.
Right.
So offices and organizations really don't have the ability to fail in the area of how their workspace is designed anymore. People don't come into the office to sit at the desk and work anymore. They go into the office to connect. And is your workspace facilitating connection? Let's just think about this. If we have conference rooms that are long and rectangular, everyone can't see each other and connect the way they used to on their office, in their remote workplace, where they can see everyone all at the same time and read behaviors and read facial expressions. There's some benefit to being in the office in a conference room, but the conference room and the meeting spaces have evolved. They don't have to be a conference room anymore. They can be in social kind of nook areas. They can be in libraries. They can be in so many different spaces. And I think the modern day worker is looking for that. Like, those are expectations that they have out of a place that they've, spent over an hour commuting to or traveled to. So the workplace has to be supporting not just the functionality and the productivity, but also think of it from the well-being perspective.
And I love the fact that you're supporting, good workplace design, and I 1,000% buy into that. Clearly,
Yeah,
I'm a designer. But I also have to say that behavior is something that I think we really need to address as well, because I can design an amazing space. And we've got plenty of spaces that we've designed that are amazing. But if people aren't using them correctly, and I think we've gotten into a lot of really bad habits. So hybrid can be the worst of both. If I'm commuting to the office to sit on a Zoom call all day, and I won't get up and go into a beautifully designed conference room that enables hybrid connections because I want to sit at my desk and multitask. And that's what's happening, I think. People are falling back on some really bad behaviors, and we need to get people snapped out of that because they're literally spending 252% more time on Zoom calls. And we're just sitting in one place, kind of becoming mush all day. And so not only do we have to create those great spaces, but we have to change behaviors and encourage people to kind of, really leverage and really think more about movement and engagement and the purpose of why did they come.
Right. So
It's so well said,
and why those changes happen in the first place. We talked about technology, we talked about change. And I think either of those things, when they're done for the sake of, technology for the sake of new technology, change for the sake of change is the wrong approach, right? If those things come into existence because they're satisfying a need, that they're helping people get to a better place, I would imagine that the results of those changes, the results of that technology tends to be more meaningful, right? Whereas if we're designing space, and I guess that's the question, right? Where does it come from? When space gets designed in a certain way, why? Where did that concept come from?
Yeah.
Is it push or pull? Is it being created to address a specific need, or it's like, hey, this would be a great idea, let's try this, and then you're trying to convince people to adapt.
Yeah. That gets me back to research and development. We were fully invested in understanding employees over COVID, what works well, how do we get them back into the office? And I don't think we need to lose that, but we really need to approach the future of work, 10, 20 years from here, right, based on behavior, based on why, but not letting technology necessarily lead us. But adapting to how humans are working or where the ways we want them to be working. To your point, sitting at a desk is not the way I think the workplace should be evolving. A worker or the world of work should be evolving too. The workplace should be a place where technology meets you for where you need to be.
Yep. And Mike, you had a guest on your show in the early days of the nightmare of 2020. I won't refer to it by name. I'll just call it the nightmare of 2020.
Make this quick, Geoff.
But I remember him saying something like, we can't take what we've learned over the last 20 years of how we work well together, in the workplace and just throw it out the window.
Right.
That, none of that has changed. The context has changed, but what we know about how we work best together fundamentally is the same.
We are the same. People are the same. Workplace leaders have been doing all the experimenting and strategizing and researching, and we don't want to throw it all out. If anything, a lot of these things were maybe accelerated, and that could be a good thing. The fact that some adoption of strategies and technologies moved along faster during that period than they ever have before, and now we're dealing with that, and we have to catch up. We have to get our people to catch up. And speaking of past guests, Geoff, that's what I call in the business a great segue into something I want to do here with you all is remember some famous quotes from past guests.
Okay.
And I've narrowed this down to the last 100 episodes. So between episode 200 and today, episode 300.
Oh, wow.
You've listened to all of those,
And
right?
you've listened to all of them,
Every
Sarah. I
single
know.
one?
Thank you for your support.
Clearly, me too.
So this will be easy. No, it's a little quiz, a little game show.
Okay.
And I want you all to hear the quote. But here I'm going to do this. Make it easy. It's multiple choice. I'm going to throw out a few names of some industry leaders, friends of ours you've known, I'm sure, and that have been guests on this show. Your colleague, Gordon Wright. Shout out to Minneapolis, Minnesota, don't you know?
Absolutely.
Katie Redmond. Katie Redmond from JLL right here in our D.C. area. Wonderful leader in the world of real estate and facilities. Ryan Anderson. Everybody knows Ryan. Ryan's got his own podcast. Encourage you to check it out. He's with Miller Knoll. Kate Lister, always pushing the conversation forward. Workplace Evolutionaries.
Yeah.
I've had several members of that community on the show, and I always enjoy the conversation. And then a mystery guest that I won't name now, but that could be someone maybe even sitting at this table as we speak. All right. Ready? Who said this? Embrace technology and innovation. There are so many exciting things happening right now. Anybody?
Kate Redmond.
Katie Redmond, exactly. 1 point for Kay Sargent, everybody.
Nice.
Total guess.
Episode 280.
Sounds like her.
Here's another one.
Okay.
The office is where culture is built and reinforced. It doesn't mean it can't happen anywhere else, but that's the sort of endorsed place for it.
Ryan.
Good guess, no. Kay should know this. Geoff, that's your clue. Gordon Wright.
There we go.
Gordon Wright said it
Okay.
from HOK, another workplace leader in your team. Remote work doesn't create management problems, it reveals them.
Kate
Ding, ding,
Lister.
ding. Yep.
All right.
That's
Actually, I don't
that's
think,
an easy one.
I think, didn't Annie Dean say that? And
Well,
she might have repeated it.
Yeah, but we take quotes out of,
Andy wasn't on the
we
list.
go with
Kate was.
You're right.
we
You're
go
right.
with quotes all the
Yes.
time here on the
Yeah.
show.
Okay.
and
All right. Okay.
Attribution is kind of a, that's a secondary
Gotcha.
thing. But Kate Lister, we've
Yep.
talked about
Sure.
the tension between remote work and return to office. And thankfully, I think we're beyond the old, binary, polarizing views of one or the other. It's got to
Let's
be
hope
a
so.
nuanced discussion. It depends on the culture, the position, the
Uh-huh.
personality, the needs of the people. We all agree on that, right? We can move past all that clickbaity headline stuff.
Yep.
Yes.
Hate that stuff.
Move it along.
Yes.
But we get sometimes, and you can express experience with this. I know Kate Lister said, because of the way she's quoted in the media and the way she's presented on LinkedIn and people share articles and research she does at Global Workplace Analytics, she gets kind of identified as a certain type of person. And you get all these kind of this list of beliefs we assume about you based on one thing you said. And it goes both ways. Somebody could say,
Absolutely.
we see value maybe in gathering occasionally in the office together and get people back to a workplace. And then all of a sudden, the internet does its thing, right?
Well, it happened already on this podcast or this conversation where I'm not afraid of technology, and I don't think it's all horrible, and I actually think that there's a wonderful side of it. But the second I made a cautionary comment about artificial intelligence, I'm like, okay, everybody's going to now think I'm a Luddite and I'm totally against artificial intelligence, and they're just going to take it that way. Everything I think is far more nuanced, and yes, I think many of us get misquoted all the time, or something is taken out of context, or you can talk to a reporter for like an hour and say all these amazing things, and you say one crazy thing. It's the crazy
That's the one
thing that they put out there.
Publish because it gets attention.
Yeah.
And we are in an attention economy. We are in an attention economy. The social media world has kind of warped us that way, but we try to push against that, right, Geoff? Here on this show, I'm always pushing against those binary polarizing views, and you're always like shouting it from the rooftops.
Yeah, no, I nuance is a very important word, and context is equally important, because otherwise, because I have this thought a lot, and I have to catch myself. I go, when did the office become such a terrible place to go? When did every boss become a heartless tyrant? Yeah. When did it seemingly everyone hate their jobs as much? If you see the headlines, if you click, you would think that everyone hates their job. They work for jerks.
Right.
And the last place in the world they want to be is the office. And that's just not true. It's just not true. And when we get into this either or, this or that, this extreme or that extreme. But like I said, I catch myself because if that's what was going on, if everyone 4 years ago, if all those things were true, I was very naive. I didn't. Yeah. I thought people liked their jobs and liked the office and liked their bosses for the most part.
Well, job satisfaction has actually gone up, but engagement has gone down. Yes. Right, because they're different things, and I think people, conflate those very often. And I think what is a challenge today is the unrelentingness of what we're dealing with as humans. It's 24/7. It's constantly coming at us. We can't necessarily turn it off. We aren't as good at having boundaries or separating things or compartmentalizing. And I think it's gotten a little out of hand. And I think we need to think about how do we create better balance. And I think we're at a really interesting point in history where artificial intelligence, I'll say something positive about artificial intelligence.
I'm all for it.
If it can actually truly increase productivity, does that mean then that we can take some of that productivity gain and give it back to the workforce? Like, do we really need to be working 5 days a week if artificial intelligence can kick in and do certain things? Like, and everybody just says, oh, we're just going to eliminate jobs and power on and make more money for big corporations. There are other choices. There are other options. And we need to think about that. It's kind of like when Henry Ford invented the assembly line. He had a choice to make. And he invented the 5-day work week because he could get more done in less time and give something back. We actually, I think, are at a point right now, from a societal standpoint, we should be having those kinds of conversations.
Yes. Absolutely.
And embracing some of this stuff that is coming at us as a positive, not necessarily vilifying it as it's only just going to be negative and make our life even worse.
Radically open-minded, flexible, yes. Willing to change, yes. And leaders need to lead.
You're not describing me, because many people did not say that about me, especially my children.
The audience here listening to us has the opportunity to do. And this is something I didn't write on the list of themes, but it encompasses every one of these topics we just have been talking about. And Sarah, I want to hear your take on this, because the idea that, listen, people are more similar than not. We have more in common than not. We get divided into groups because of our role or the department we're in or what we feel we have control over. And I think that's where we get stuck sometimes. And I'm always using the Breakfast Club movie as an analogy of, hey, let's get everybody together at Saturday morning detention and sit around and talk about how we have so much more in common than not. Yes, John Bender, a little, hey, dun, dun. Don't you forget about me, Kay. Listen,
I won't.
But it's hard, right? It's difficult to be a leader, and especially in today's world where you could be misinterpreted when you're trying to move people in a direction and cast a vision and say, we want you to come along with us here as a team, as an organization. And I always say people often, human beings, the behavior, and I'm talking about myself, left to our own devices, sometimes we make bad decisions for ourselves, and our teams are sometimes out there floundering because leaders refuse to lead. I'm not talking about old school management, mandates, all that stuff. Don't like it. I'm talking about inspirational leadership and how well-being flows when a person who has charge of a department or a team and really cares about their people makes a difference in those people's lives. What do you think?
It does. And I think there are some leadership skills that we're short of right now in our leaders. The Priya Parker, she's the author of The Art of Gathering.
Yes.
She said that the number one leadership skills, I'm paraphrasing here, but the number one leadership skills an effective and successful leader will have is the ability to engage with people and to lead in gathering. That's not a skill set that many of us have, but there are so many components to coming together as a group, as one-on-one, that leaders really need to start finessing. And one of them is trust. We have to start building trust again. And I think that when we see headlines like unhappiness, engagement, what we're not focusing enough on is, do we have trust at the leadership level and at the team level? So the workplace, the office is a place people want to come to. Because otherwise, if I'm comfortable in being productive in my home office or in a way that I don't necessarily have to have deep engagement, then engagement might be good for me. Being at home might be good for me. This even affects some leaders and some managers. Sometimes they are better remote workers. So we need to be arming our leaders or anyone that's at the charge of change or change management with, do you know how to bring people together in a trusting way that leads to productivity? So there are some that's well-being, but I think that's a lot more on development, leadership development, that we need to be focused on as we talk about, like, how do we bring people back together in a way that we're addressing engagement, productivity, and happiness.
So good. And we're going to cover those in future episodes of the show. I promise you all. Geoff, one more comment?
Two words have come up here in the last few minutes that I think are important for us to talk about: productivity and job satisfaction, right? And, you asked earlier kind of what's changed over the past 300 episodes. mean, those words have always been important, but they've never been more important. And I think they've never been more misunderstood. And they are also contextual. They are also company specific. And Kay, you and I have talked about this. Mike, we've talked about this. We talk about what are some of the challenges we've been facing over the past few years? And what's the root cause of some of those challenges? And what we've said is we're asking the wrong questions, right? And we're talking about the wrong things. And I think productivity and job satisfaction are a byproduct of that, right? So, and I think we need to get some clear definitions around what those things are and what they mean, because you mentioned job satisfaction is higher than it's ever been. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they quoted or they referenced a study that said that job satisfaction, and I think for hybrid workers, was over 75%. That's astronomical. For those same workers, burnout was also at the highest possible level. So how's that possible?
Another paradox, Geoff.
Because hybrid is the hardest model to put off. It's inconsistent. There's no routine that you fall into. You're not getting into a pattern. It is the hardest thing to pull off. And I think we have grossly misunderstood that.
Yep.
And I don't think most companies are putting in the hard work that they need to.
Yes.
And we have said this, and I'll say it again. There is such a thing as a stupid question. And I don't think we're asking the right questions.
Yep.
And I think one of the questions, this whole thing about productivity, most companies measure productivity by how long you're sitting at your computer. And I don't know about you, but my company is not paying me to sit at a computer 10 hours a day and just answer emails and say, yay, I was very productive today. That's probably one of my worst days. We need to change the conversation. There are certain people that it is about productivity. But for knowledge workers, we need to be changing that question to be like, what does your company actually value? Relationships? Connections? Airtime? Exposure? You can't measure that by how long you're sitting on a computer. And I think when we start reframing the questions to being things that are far more relevant, we'll be better off.
All right. Great stuff. You all are fantastic. We are running out of time rapidly. It goes by so fast.
We have hours more to talk about,
This
right?
is not a 3-hour podcast, Kay. Come on. We got to keep this tight and on point. And that means, everybody, we got to talk about music again. We have a little quiz. Music quiz. Get your buzzers ready. I asked you before the show, what's your buzzer, Kay? Sarah's?
Ding, ding, ding.
All right. These are songs, everybody. These are songs that I have quoted in my speeches, I've heard mentioned on the podcast, and they have inspirational lyrics. I told you a long time ago that everything I need to know about workplace and human behavior and, relationships and connectivity, it's been expressed through lyrics since the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So, you ready? I know that you will know these songs, and there will be points assigned randomly. I love the game show host opportunity here. First, the reason I talk about music, and I ask my guests right out of the gates what your favorite type of music is because this artist sang, music is a world within itself, with a language we all understand, with an equal opportunity for all to sing, dance, and clap their hands. Everybody.
Stevie Wonder.
They can feel it all over.
Nice.
They can feel it all over, people. Stevie Wonder, everybody. I would have also accepted Andre Jones and DJ Mike P because that song was an outtake from episode 1 of On My Way to Work. Please check my LinkedIn and find it in the featured section.
That's the only one I'm going to get. That's
Next one. Did I disappoint you or leave a bad taste in your mouth? You act like you never had love. And you want me to go without. This is a
so
song.
much more effective when you sing it.
This is a song that I talk about with the polarization in our world today and the need to get everybody back together. Well, it's too late tonight to drag the past out into the light. We're one, but we're not the same. We get to carry each other. My favorite band.
Too. Yeah.
Yes, from Dublin, Ireland, everybody. One. Fantastic. All
right,
a couple more.
You got any Neil Diamond quotes over there? I can rock a Neil Diamond quote if you've got.
You didn't do your buzzer. I got 1 point for Kay, 1 point for Geoff. Sarah, this is your chance. Here we go.
Okay.
This is another one of those dealing with tensions in the workplace and people arguing and human relationships. They told him, don't you ever come around here. Don't want to see your face. You better disappear.
Michael Jackson.
There's fire. Where are the buzzers, everybody? We lost the buzzers. I'm giving the point to Sarah.
All that practice for nothing.
Just beat it.
Yeah.
Beat it. Anybody see the We Are the World
Loved
documentary?
it.
Yes.
Awesome stuff. Fantastic.
Loved it.
All right. This one is related to the
Tiebreaker.
idea I had before. When you hear the lyric, you're going to say, Mike, you're right on target. The younger generation especially is struggling. I should not be left to my own devices. They come with prices and vices. I end up in crisis. Tale as old as time. I wake up screaming from dreaming. One day I'll watch as you're leaving because you got tired of my scheming for that last time. Everybody, it's me. Hi, I'm the
Taylor
problem.
Swift.
It's me. At T, that's right. Time. Everybody agrees. I got to
Taylor
give it to
Swift.
Taylor. This song, many people don't read the actual lyrics. She's talking about the fact that she's the problem. We're the problem. Human beings create our own problems, and we need to face that and address that. A little self-awareness and maybe a chance to improve our workplace experiences. All right, and this is the last one. My sincere hope and dream about this podcast. I never meant to cause you any sorrow. I never meant to cause you any pain. I only wanted one time to see you laughing.
Oh, ding, 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 ding. Prince.
I
Purple
only
Rain.
want to see you laughing in the purple rain. Everybody, purple rain, purple rain. Woo! Fantastic. You all are great. All right, as we wrap up, I always am challenged by our friend at the end of the panel there, Geoff Snavely, says, Mike, why did I listen to this podcast for an hour? Give me
I've
something
never
practical,
said that.
something, a takeaway I can use and put into practice, something real. Let's go down the line. I'll start with you, Geoff. Put you on the spot. Something for our FM and workplace leaders that they can do after listening to episode 300 of the Workplace Innovator podcast.
Yeah. Biases. We've all got them. And I want to challenge everyone to become aware of their biases, understand their biases, and challenge their biases. I think if we all do that, we're going to get to a better place. I really think that's important. So,
love it. Sarah?
Mine would be invest in your teams. There is major innovation going on all around us. And I think we should be prepared for what technology can give and what technology cannot replace, and master those skills at every level so that we can show up for the organizations as the true innovators that we are.
Emotional intelligence. Increase it. I love it. Kay, bring us home.
Walk a mile in somebody else's shoes.
yeah. Wow.
I think that a lot of the older generation is viewing everything through the lens that we had when we entered the workplace. There is a massive societal shift. And I think we need to put ourselves in the position of younger workers who have unbelievable debt, who are looking at a 50 plus 60-year career, constantly having to be retrained, dealing with artificial intelligence and the impact that that will have, and knowing they're going to end their career in professions that don't even exist today. It's overwhelming. It's daunting. And I think the pushback is because we don't have balance right now, and things are moving so quickly, and we need to think about how can we create a more sustainable life, not just environmental sustainable, but human sustainability, well-being. How can we make work more sustainable? Because we are going to be doing it for longer, and it's 24/7. It never stops, and it's overwhelming.
Amazing. You all nailed it. Very well said. And everybody out there, if you're struggling in any way as you try to figure out what's next in your career and you need help, we're here for you. These are the types of things we do in our workplace community. The Workplace Innovator Nation is here for you. And just to bring it back full circle to baseball and Yogi Berra, if you're struggling right now, not sure what happens, it ain't over till it's over. And don't let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. That's Babe Ruth,
Nice.
another great baseball, famous voice that really brings it all together, right?
Yeah, and Mike, congratulations on 300, and we'll see you back here in 2 years for 400.
Right about that time, we will.
But
I'm
Mike,
looking forward to it.
what's your do something? I mean, after 300 episodes, what advice, what tangible, actionable advice would you pass along to us?
No, Jeff, you don't get to ask me the questions. I'm the host here, and I
He does.
want to leave by saying thank you, and I will give you the piece of advice. Thank you very much, each of you, for doing this. This has been fantastic. I can't thank you enough, actually.
Thank you.
And I do look forward to doing it again.
Thank
And to
you,
answer
Mike.
your question, Jeff, I hope that this show, in some small way, inspires people. I want to tell everybody that the reason I do this is not to be that practical how-to guide. I get a lot of great experts on the show, but my job here is just to have a little fun, a little inspiration, and I hope in some small way I inspire everyone out there to be a workplace innovator. And that's the thing. Innovation never stops, and it's not some huge breakthrough every time. Innovation can be small things, a series of small changes, a series of small things, and you all have demonstrated that. You've been with me on this long journey. Look forward to the years ahead. Thank you again for being here, and thank you all for listening and watching. Until next time, peace out, everybody.
Peace out.
Peace out.
You've been listening to the Workplace Innovator Podcast, powered by Eptura, the epicenter of the future of work. For more about how we help organizations to engineer a thriving environment by enhancing their employee experience, workspaces, and asset value, please visit eptura.com.